Sit back and enjoy an hour of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started.
Abraham Lincoln was considered ugly, and he himself thought so as well. Once, when he was accused of being dishonest or two-faced, his response was, "If I had two faces, do you think I would be wearing this one?" In New Orleans, Louisiana, there is a law that requires participants in the Mardi Gras Carnival Parade to wear a traditional mask. On the other hand, on any other day of the year, it is illegal to wear masks or costumes. Only children are allowed to do so on Halloween. The ancient Egyptians were already using metal long before the Iron Age, thanks to meteoric iron, primitive rock found in meteorites that contains metal without needing processing. Something similar happened in Greenland in South America, and it is the inspiration for Wakanda in Black Panther, where a civilization advances faster and becomes powerful thanks to metal from a meteorite. In recent years, a rumor has gained traction claiming that in China, there are artificial eggs made from sodium alginate, calcium chloride, and calcium carbonate, sold for less than 1/10 of the cost of real eggs. But it has been confirmed that this is a false rumor, and among the viral videos about it is one showing a slime factory in Korea. Maple syrup contains more calcium than milk and more potassium than bananas. It is also a good source of minerals, such as magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, and iron. In Canada, they make a maple syrup candy by pouring it onto snow and rolling it onto a popsicle stick. There is a cricket known as the Kilauea lava cricket, or dark lava cricket, that lives exclusively in recently solidified lava flows produced by volcanoes in Hawaii. They arrive even before any type of plant life. When enough time passes and animals and plants begin to populate the area, the cricket simply disappears. The characters Bebop and Rocksteady were added to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series in 1987 solely because the toy company making the figures wanted more characters to sell. In Switzerland, in addition to having underground shelters for all its inhabitants, there is also a strategic plan in which they can blow up strategic roads, bridges, and tunnels to block land access to the country. It was designed during the Cold War era, but it is still maintained today. According to research, people whose initials form an insult or who have an unusual name that can lead to ridicule tend to have a shorter life expectancy. This may be due to the psychological stress caused by bullying from childhood. According to new statistics, more and more people have prosopagnosia, or face blindness, the inability to distinguish different faces. It was originally thought that 2% of people suffered from it, but it is now believed that it may affect 1 out of every 33 people in some way. No hurricane has ever crossed the equator. The Coriolis effect, caused by the rotation of the Earth, is what gives hurricanes their spinning motion. At the equator, this force is 0, which makes it impossible for a hurricane to cross it. Human gas is, in a way, similar to fingerprints since its bacterial composition is unique to each person. For this reason, it does not bother you to smell your own gas as much as that of others. The stadium of the American football team Dallas Cowboys, built in 2009 and with a capacity of 80,000 people, can use more electrical energy in a single day than the entire country of Liberia. If you dove 20,000 leagues under the sea, like the title of Jules Verne's book, you would not only reach the bottom of the ocean, but you would pass through the entire Earth and reach halfway to the moon. 1 league is equivalent to approximately 3.4 miles, so the distance would be approximately 68,000 miles in total. The title of the book, of course, refers to the distance traveled at sea, not the depth. When NASA's Space Shuttle program was in operation, it cost $54,500 per pound to transport something into space, whereas now, with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket, this cost has been reduced to $1,234 per pound. Magnolia flowers are so ancient that they evolved before bees. That is why they are pollinated by beetles, attracting them with special scented oils. These flowers have remained almost unchanged since the age of the dinosaurs. The comedian Javier Lopez Chabelo earned 2 Guinness World Records in 2012. The first was for 44 uninterrupted years on the air with his show En Familia con Chabelo, and the second was for portraying his character Chabelo for 57 years. In the 1970s and 1980s, radio programs and computer games were broadcast through sound, which people could simply record at home on a magnetic tape cassette and load into their computer. The Swedish warship Vasa is the only 17th century ship that has survived intact to the present day. It sank in 1628, but was recovered and restored in 1961. It is on display in a museum in the city of Stockholm. Because the special editions released from the first Star Wars movie were altered at the request of George Lucas, adding digital effects, a group of fans who wanted the original 1977 experience carried out a direct restoration from copies of approximately 1.38 inches. They were cleaned frame by frame and scanned in 4K as a work of cinematic preservation that almost borders on obsessive. The 1999 movie Office Space made red staplers popular. Most office supply stores did not carry this color, and after the movie's release, demand increased, forcing manufacturers to produce them. The one that appears in the movie had been specially painted. In 1848, the British East India Company sent a botanist to the forbidden part of China, where foreigners were not allowed to enter, to steal tea seeds that were only available in that territory and take them to India. A few years later, India became the largest tea producer in the world, and China's economy was ruined. In an area of the Namib Desert, grass circles known as fairy circles form, which were long considered a mystery. But it was recently discovered that they form due to the distribution of water when it rains, which concentrates in circular patterns and is then used by nearby plants. The Hebrew language version of the book The Hobbit that was commercially used until the year 2012 was actually a translation based on the English edition made by Israeli pilots who were held captive in an Egyptian prison in 1970, who wrote it simply to pass the time. In one of the oldest known books on tactics to win at chess from 1561, among the advice given was to play with your back to the sun so your opponent would be dazzled, and if playing at night, they advised casting your shadow over the board so your opponent could not see the moves. Extremely good advice. The resume, or resume, is a document a person uses to present their background, skills, and achievements. Its creation is attributed to Leonardo da Vinci, who wrote one in 1482 to a potential employer. It is usually shorter than a curriculum vitae. The city that has competed the most times to host the Olympic Games without ever winning is Detroit, United States. Between 1940 and 1972, it tried 9 times but was not selected. Designers of artificial flavors must have completed 7 years of training under a master flavorist in order to be hired. They are one of the most important jobs for food companies, since every product needs a flavor specialist. On average, half of service dogs fail training. Because of this, in South Korea, they attempted to clone dogs that passed to see if they could improve the rate, and it was shown that they could. Cloned dogs had a higher chance of passing. The main character of the comedy drama series Succession, the media mogul Logan Roy, is based on the real-life businessman Rupert Murdoch, whose company News Corp owns media outlets such as The Sun, Sky News, and Fox News. In addition, he has 6 children who are currently competing to see who will inherit the media empire, just like in the series. Alcatraz prison was one of the few prisons that offered hot water showers to inmates. This was not for their comfort, but so they would become accustomed to warmer temperatures, making it impossible for them to swim in the cold waters surrounding the island if they attempted to escape. The toothpaste that Mr. Bucket, Charlie's father in the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, is working on is called Smilex. It is the same name as the substance the Joker uses to poison the city of Gotham in the movie Batman from 1989, also directed by Tim Burton. Pepsi ran a campaign in which people were asked to taste Coca-Cola and Pepsi in cups without knowing which was which, showing that more people chose Pepsi. But according to research, people tend to choose the sweeter option at first. However, if they drink an entire can, they prefer the less sweet option. There is a species of soft-shelled sea turtle that spends 95% of its life buried under river sand without moving. It only comes to the surface twice a day to breathe. Scientists placed a type of mold on a map similar to that of the city of Tokyo to see how it would spread, placing food at the points where the main urban centers are located. After one day, the mold created a network almost identical to Tokyo's train system, which was designed to be as efficient as possible. In the Avatar movies, the Na'vi have 4 fingers and are left-handed, while the Avatars have 5 fingers and are right-handed. This was decided during the production of the first movie because the actress Zoe Saldana is left-handed, so she would not look out of place using a bow and arrow compared to the other characters. The director James Cameron is also left-handed. The giant bucket wheel excavator Bagger 293, built in Germany, is the heaviest land machine ever constructed. More than approximately 15,432 short tons and around 315 feet tall. It can move up to approximately 313,908 cubic yards of Earth per day. Its movement is so slow that it requires continuous electricity and a crew that walks alongside it. Despite its size, it only requires 5 people to operate. Eating spicy food can cause the brain to release feel-good hormones such as dopamine and endorphins, creating a sensation similar to when you finish exercising or after laughing a lot. The countries of Slovakia and Slovenia are the ones most often confused with each other. It has happened many times that during official visits, the wrong flag is displayed or the national anthem is mixed up. It was even said that staff from both embassies in the city of Washington, D.C. would meet from time to time to exchange mail that had been sent to the wrong country. Of the 20 common openings in chess, the one considered the worst of all is the Barnes opening, whose disadvantages include controlling only one central square, exposing the king, and hindering the development of the knight. Stephen King was inspired by the traditional Norwegian tale The Three Billy Goats Gruff to write his novel It. In the story, 3 goats must cross a bridge where a troll lives underneath. Instead of a simple bridge, he imagined an entire city with something monstrous beneath it, in the sewers where terror dwells. Thus, the troll became the entity It, which usually takes the form of the clown Pennywise to frighten people. It is believed that the first fruit cultivated by humans was the fig. In traces of the earliest evidence of agriculture found in the Middle East, dating back around 11,000 years, fig trees were discovered. The pizza chains Domino's Pizza and Little Caesars, 2 of the largest restaurant chains in the world, were founded less than approximately 19 miles apart in Michigan, United States. To this day, they keep their corporate offices close to each other. As part of an experiment, a species of fruit flies was kept in complete darkness for 60 years, which is equivalent to 1,500 generations. When studied today, although they showed no apparent changes, their DNA had significant changes in 84 genes, showing that the environment influences genetics in a relatively short time. The Cartier Crash Watch, manufactured in 1967, which looks like a watch painted by Dali, was actually inspired by a real car accident. That is how a watch ended up after being exposed to the heat of a vehicle fire. Although no further details are known and it is only speculation, its asymmetric design became an icon for collectors. Some special editions can sell for more than $100,000. Frank Baum wrote 13 sequels to his book The Wizard of Oz. This was thanks to letters he received from fans of the book asking for more stories. He wrote around 1 sequel per year until the end of his life. According to scientific calculations, the next eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano should have occurred 40,000 years ago, since the last time it erupted was 640,000 years ago, ejecting material thousands of miles away. This phenomenon created what is now known as Yellowstone National Park. On average, a bottle of beer produced and purchased in Australia costs 333% more than a bottle of beer produced and purchased in Germany. Tabula rasa, which in Latin means blank slate, was an idea popularized by the philosopher John Locke in the 17th century. He claimed that we are born without innate knowledge and that experience shapes our mind as if writing on an empty board. The expression was originally used by the Romans to describe wax tablets that had been erased for reuse. According to a 2013 investigation, the company Frito-Lay spent more than $30 million per year on 500 chemists and psychologists whose mission was to create the perfect formula for Cheetos, with the color, aroma, and texture needed to make people consume more. In the movie Captain America: Civil War, during one scene, Hawkeye sarcastically calls Tony Stark the Futurist. In reality, this was a reference to the music album The Futurist, released by Robert Downey Jr. in 2004, which was not well received by critics and had very little success. The actor Charles Chaplin was banned from the United States in 1952 due to the political themes addressed in his films. In 1972, he returned when he was awarded an honorary Oscar and received a 12-minute standing ovation, the longest in the history of the Academy. Microsoft registered a patent that allows different video devices, such as televisions or the discontinued Kinect accessory, to detect the number of people watching in order to stop video playback and charge more if there are too many viewers. The tennis player Richard Norris Williams was a survivor of the sinking of the Titanic, where his legs were so badly damaged that doctors said they could not be saved. However, he refused to accept this, and just a few months later, he was already competing at the Wimbledon Championships, a tournament he would eventually win. The country of Haiti dissolved its armed forces in 1996 due to the multiple coups that had occurred in previous decades, creating a civilian force instead. Since 2017, Haiti has once again had an army. Macarons, the French cookie dessert, actually originated in Italy, and it was not until the 17th century that they were brought to France by Catherine de' Medici when she married Henry II of France. It was not until the 19th century that they took on their sandwich form, joining two with cream in the middle. Once, Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Automobile Company, destroyed with his own hands a prototype of the new Model T that his engineers had presented to him because he did not want any updates or improvements to be made. The personal sushi chef of the then leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-il, managed to escape the country in 2001 when he asked permission to go buy a sea urchin to prepare a special dish. Sometime later, he wrote an autobiography with all the details of what he experienced in that position. Pasca was a popular drink in the Roman army. It was made by mixing vinegar, water, and herbs. It was cheap, disinfected the water, and was refreshing under the sun. Soldiers drank it even more than wine, and generals and even Julius Caesar himself shared it to show humility. Its taste was sour, but its practical value made it the energy drink of the empire. The actor Robin Williams appeared in what could be considered one of the first podcasts ever. In 2000, he hosted an internet-exclusive show in which he chatted with famous friends such as Jeff Bridges and Whoopi Goldberg. All Oscar winners, before accepting the award, must sign a contract stating that if they want to sell the statuette, they are required to offer it first to the Academy in exchange for $1. Despite this, it is estimated that more than 150 of these awards have been sold privately. At the New Year Festival in Thailand, which takes place every April, people traditionally splash water on Buddha statues to symbolize purification. However, the tradition evolved into a massive water fight. People prepare with water guns, buckets, and hoses. During a concert on a tour in 1955 in Ghana, the American musician Louis Armstrong suddenly stopped in the middle of a song because he became emotional after noticing that a dancer looked very much like his mother. Shortly afterward, he stated that at that moment, he realized he came from that country and from his ancestors, so he adopted Ghana as his second homeland. Although the most valuable company in the world today is Apple, it is far from being the most valuable of all time. That title would belong to the Dutch East India Company, which was primarily dedicated to the global spice trade and, adjusted for inflation, reached a value of up to $8 trillion. Apple has only reached $3 trillion. A trillion is a million. James Earl Jones, who has provided the voice for characters such as Darth Vader and Mufasa in The Lion King, had a stuttering problem during his childhood that even led him to stop speaking for several years. But thanks to the support of one of his teachers, who had him read aloud every day, he discovered that he had a gift for performing poetry. During the time when Augustus was emperor in ancient Rome, the city reached its highest population with 1 million people. But as the empire began to decline, this number dropped. It was not until 1930 that the city of Rome again reached 1 million residents. The transit of Venus is an astronomical event that occurs when Venus passes directly between the Sun and the Earth. It is like a solar eclipse, but the distance of Venus makes it appear only as a black dot crossing the visible face of the Sun for a few hours. This occurs every 243 years, with a pair of transits separated by 8 years, and then more than a century until the next pair. It sounds complicated, but it is very well calculated. There can even be a transit of Mercury and Venus at the same time, but it will take thousands of years for the next one to happen. Opossums are natural enemies of ticks. It is estimated that a single opossum can destroy more than 5,000 ticks during one summer and cause them to stop appearing in its territory. The founder of Ford Automobiles, Henry Ford, tried to end the First World War by undertaking what he called a peace voyage to Europe in 1915, along with pacifists and reporters. The mission cost $500,000, and when he arrived, he was received by only 8 people. After this, he canceled the stops he had planned in other cities and returned home instead. The oldest movie with a recorded copyright that has survived to this day is Fred Ott's Sneeze from 1894, produced by Thomas Edison's company, in which one of his assistants sneezes. It only lasts 5 seconds. In the Chinese movie called The Wandering Earth, based on the novel of the same name, when the sun begins to lose energy, a project is launched to move the Earth out of the solar system using planetary thrusters powered by fusion energy known as Earth engines. Although it was not very well known outside of China, it became one of the 20 most successful science fiction films, grossing $700 million at the box office. Red Bull and all other energy drinks containing taurine and caffeine were banned in Canada until 2004. In France, Norway, and Denmark, they were also banned, but sales were allowed once no negative health effects were found. Harrison Ford had already decided to abandon his acting career during his early years because he only landed small roles and could not afford to support his family, so he chose to become a carpenter instead. During a carpentry job in 1972, he met George Lucas, who invited him to work on the movie American Graffiti, and shortly afterward considered him for the role of Han Solo in Star Wars. The most common banknote in the world is the $100 bill. It is estimated that there are more than 8,200,000,000 of these bills in circulation worldwide. Until 2015, the most common one was the $1 bill. The actor Brad Pitt appears for 2 seconds in the movie Deadpool 2. In exchange for his performance, he received a Starbucks coffee as payment, with the condition that it be delivered personally by Ryan Reynolds, who played Deadpool. Some years later, Reynolds returned the favor by appearing in Bullet Train. A group of researchers from a university in Texas were studying the history of the pirate Morgan. They were trying to recover instruments from his sunken ship off the coast of Panama, but they ran out of funding. When this became known, they were financially supported by the company that produces Captain Morgan rum. Taylor Swift has mentioned that she does not read musical notation because she does not like the technical side of music. Among other musicians who do not know how or do not like to read musical notes are Paul McCartney and all the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Prince, Slash, Bob Dylan, and Elvis Presley, among others. The country with the highest average internet speed is Singapore, followed by South Korea, Monaco, and Romania, while in Latin America, the fastest internet is found in Chile. The cooking extruder machine uses heat, pressure, and mechanical force to cook, mix, and shape foods into a final, ready-to-eat product. It is used to make products such as cereals and snacks. However, the first of these machines to be used industrially was to make dog food by the company Purina. The country of Mongolia used to have an official navy, even though it has no access to the sea. They only had one boat, and fewer than half of the personnel knew how to swim. Currently, they no longer have a navy. There is a website where you can see in real time how much money Norway's investment fund has, which was started with money from the oil they discovered in the 70s and which belongs to every citizen of that country. Unregistered gold miners in Mongolia who do not have permits are commonly known as ninja miners because of the special container they carry on their backs, which looks like a shell from the Ninja Turtles. The Aston Martin Lagonda of 1976 was the first mass-produced automobile to incorporate a fully digital instrument panel. There was one model with calculator-like liquid crystal displays and another with cathode ray tube displays, a technology taken from the F-15 Eagle jet. Even so, many customers reported that it failed too often, so it was not adopted in other cars. North Korea has still not paid for the 1,000 Volvo cars it ordered from Sweden in the 70s. When they were sent the invoice, they simply ignored it and kept the cars. To this day, they are used to transport guests around the country. Caffeine dependence was proposed by the American Psychiatric Association as a mental disorder, but it was not officially included in the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Brain mapping studies have not shown the typical activation of addiction circuits as happens with other substances. The Mediterranean myth of the Cyclops has been theorized to have originated because pygmy elephant skeletons were found, whose skull is only about twice the size of a human one, and whose central nasal cavity can easily be mistaken for the cavity of a single giant eye. In the 11th century, the Persian mathematician al-Biruni calculated the radius of the Earth with great precision, and noted that between Europe and Asia there must exist a large, still unknown landmass to balance the planet. Although he did not speak directly about America, his geographic reasoning anticipated its existence centuries before others, such as Christopher Columbus, did. The series Ted Lasso is about an American football coach who ends up coaching a soccer team in England. Despite this, according to statistics, people in Great Britain do not watch the series as much as Americans do, mainly because the Apple TV streaming service is one of the least popular in the country. Less than 10% of households have the service. 84% of the fat that the human body burns leaves the body in the form of carbon dioxide when we breathe. We are breathing out the fat that we later replace in the form of food. Meanwhile, trees are 50% carbon that comes from the carbon dioxide they absorb from the air during photosynthesis. What actually makes water a good conductor of electrical energy are the impurities it contains, such as minerals. By itself, water would not be able to conduct electricity. For a time, Pepsi was the sixth most powerful naval force in the world. This happened because of a deal the company made with the Soviet Union, which paid with 17 submarines, one cruiser, one destroyer, and one frigate in exchange for selling Pepsi in that country. The payment was made this way because they did not have access to United States dollars. Later, Pepsi sold the fleet to a Norwegian scrapyard. All languages have special words or sounds that people use between sentences while they are thinking of what to say next. In Spanish, it can be or but in each language it is different. For example, in Japanese, it is this. The first Mortal Kombat game was created by only 4 people in 10 months. It was originally going to be called Dragon Attack after a Queen song. Although the violence in the game was initially just a technical joke, it ended up completely changing the industry and led to hearings in the United States Congress that resulted in the creation of the video game rating system. It would take you approximately 18 months to walk the 12,427 miles of the Great Wall of China, the longest structure ever built. The design of the Sydney Opera House includes 14 roofs of different sizes, and it is said that if they are all combined, they can form a perfect sphere. This design required the invention of new technologies in order to support the structure. The oldest known design of a parachute appears in an anonymous Renaissance manuscript from approximately 1470, more than 400 years before the first airplane. The drawing shows a man in free fall with a cone-shaped parachute with cords tied to his waist. The Hyundai automobile logo, in addition to being a stylized H, also represents a handshake between a salesperson representing the company and a customer. The Alcubierre warp drive is a theoretical hypothesis proposed by the Mexican physicist Miguel Alcubierre. It is a type of engine that would allow travel faster than the speed of light by creating a bubble that contracts space in front of a ship and expands it behind, while inside the ship the speed of light would not be exceeded, so it does not contradict general relativity. In Futurama, it is mentioned that the Planet Express ship works in a similar way. The largest perfume factory of antiquity was discovered in Cyprus. It dates back to the Bronze Age, about 4,000 years ago, and covered an area of approximately 1.5 square miles, indicating that its production was almost industrial in scale. Once, the United States Postal Service sent a letter to the band The Postal Service asking them to change their name. But after negotiations, they were allowed to keep it, in exchange for performing at the annual Mail Carriers Conference. Several civilizations saw the shape of a rabbit on the moon since ancient times. The Aztecs in the legend of the Five Suns, when the god Tecutitl becomes the moon as punishment. In China, the jade rabbit that prepares the elixir of immortality. And in India, the god Indra rewards the lunar rabbit for its selfless sacrifice. In a soccer match between Iran and Denmark, a player from Iran confused the sound of a whistle from the crowd with the referee's signal for the end of the first half. So he picked up the ball with his hands inside the penalty area, and the referee had to call it. The Danish player who took the penalty realized what had happened and deliberately missed the shot as an act of fair play. In the end, Denmark lost 1-0. Sony holds the record for the largest CRT television ever made. The PVM 4300 was built in 1989 and measured 43 inches, weighed approximately 440 pounds, and was sold at a price of $40,000. After years of being only a legend among retro television enthusiasts, the last known unit was located in Osaka, Japan, by the YouTuber ShankMods, who imported it to the United States and restored it. A retired construction worker set out to build a replica of the Stonehenge monument in his yard without using modern technology, only simple wooden mechanisms. All of this was done to prove that the monument does not have a paranormal origin. Beethoven composed many of his most popular pieces with the intention that they be played faster, including the Fifth Symphony, unlike how they are commonly performed today. But since many professional orchestras had trouble playing them, they slowed the tempo instead. Toyota sold a version of the GT86 car in Japan that had plastic bumpers, basic rims, and did not have air conditioning or a screen. It cost $2,000 less. It was a special version for tuning enthusiasts so they could discard the cheaper parts and install customized ones. According to a study, soccer goalkeepers who wear red have an advantage when stopping penalty kicks. They managed to stop more than those wearing blue or green, but no clear reason was given for why this happens. In every movie of Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, someone can be seen losing an arm or a hand. The president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, explained that this is a tribute to the movie Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, in which the same thing happens to Luke Skywalker at its climax. At Don Mueang International Airport in Bangkok, Thailand, there is a full golf course located between two of its runways. There are red lights that warn golfers who are playing at that moment that an airplane is about to land. Authorities in France prevented a girl from being named Nutella and only approved the shortened form, Ella. The judge in charge said it was not allowed because it would be a reason for bullying as she grew up. According to ophthalmology associations, taking regular breaks from screens can reduce eye strain, improve concentration, and lower stress levels. They recommend following the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes of screen time, look at something that is 20 feet away for 20 seconds. 20 feet is approximately 6.7 yards. As an additional fact, Liberia and Burma are already completing the change from the imperial system to the metric system, so only the United States will continue measuring things in feet. The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt was the tallest man-made structure in the world for 3,871 years, until Lincoln Cathedral in England was completed in 1311. There are 21 different species of fish that can be categorized and sold as sardines, and companies are not required to specify on labels which species they contain. Bridgmanite is the most abundant mineral compound on planet Earth. It is a dense mixture of iron and magnesium silicates. However, it cannot be found on the surface because it exists in the lower mantle, and the only sample known was found in a meteorite. In 2007, Comet Holmes temporarily brightened to more than 500,000 times its normal brightness. It is the largest phenomenon of this type ever observed. During that brief time, it became the largest observable object in the solar system. When the animated movie Thumbelina from 1994 was first shown to a test audience by the studio Warner Brothers, it was not well received. They later ran another test showing the same movie but with the Disney logo at the beginning, and this time, it was successful. In the Middle Ages, Europeans used slices of hard bread called trenchers as disposable plates to hold food, and when finished, they would give them to the poor or eat them later after soaking them in sauce. Other cultures use bread as a utensil: injera in Ethiopia, roti in India, and tostadas in Mexico. Dr. Arthur Lintgen became famous for being able to identify pieces of classical music simply by observing the different textures of a vinyl record, which are what make the needle vibrate and produce sound. According to a report by an oil company, reducing macho workplace culture on an oil platform in the Gulf of Mexico resulted in 84% fewer accidents, while productivity and efficiency increased. With a runtime of 2 hours and 20 minutes, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is, to date, the longest animated movie produced in the United States. In addition, it is the animated film that has involved the most people. There were around 1,000 people involved in its production. The main Star Wars theme, composed by John Williams, is heavily inspired by the music from a lesser-known movie from 1942 called King's Row. There are even moments where the notes and arrangements are the same. There are people today who specialize in recreating the purple pigments that were used centuries ago as a symbol of status, since dyeing fabric required collecting and processing thousands of snails. These pigments can be purchased online at prices of up to approximately $70,875 per ounce. Evidence was found that Native Americans managed to defend themselves against an attempted invasion by 50 Vikings who arrived on the island of Newfoundland in Canada in 985. Nearby is believed to be the only settlement the Vikings established in the Americas outside of Greenland. According to the law in different countries, biting someone with your natural teeth is a lesser offense and has fewer consequences than biting someone with dentures, since they can be considered a tool to cause harm. When the largest diamond in the world was transported from Africa to England in 1906, the steamship journey attracted attention, but was only a decoy. The real diamond was sent by mail in a cardboard box. There are nuclear power plants that are so safe, they can even withstand a commercial airplane crashing into them without releasing radioactive substances. There is a psychological phenomenon called the Chivas-Regal effect, in which raising the price of a product without changing its quality causes its sales to increase, since buyers often perceive something more expensive as being of higher quality. Hands wrinkle when they are underwater for a long time due to an evolutionary trait. The brain triggers this change in order to provide better grip underwater and increase safety. Contrary to what is traditionally believed, the Renaissance painter Michelangelo did not paint the Sistine Chapel lying down on scaffolding. In fact, according to one of his early 16th century biographies, he painted it leaning backward, and in one of the painter's own poems, he mentions the pain he endured from maintaining uncomfortable postures for so long. In China, making noise while eating and even burping is seen positively and can be a way to show gratitude to the person who prepared the food. On the other hand, finishing everything on your plate is seen as disrespectful, as it suggests that you are not satisfied. There is a plant endemic to Chile called Boquilla trifoliolata that is capable of changing its shape and adapting to resemble the tree it attaches to. It can change color, shape, and orientation to go unnoticed. It is the only plant known with this ability. A good practice for those who buy an action camera like a GoPro is to save a photo of a business card or contact information written on a piece of paper, since these are among the most commonly lost items, and this increases the chances of them being returned. To film the movie Babe, the Brave Little Pig, 48 different piglets were used, since they could only work for a few weeks before growing too large for the role. Animatronics and digital effects were used to synchronize the dialogue and create the illusion that there was only one pig and not 48 different ones. The most expensive Rolls-Royce car ever built to date is the coach-built Boat Tail 2, priced at $30 million, of which only 3 units will be produced. Version 1 was made especially for Beyoncé and Jay-Z, and building each one takes nearly 4 years. In the final track of Pink Floyd's album Atom Heart Mother, a dripping sink can be heard at the end, which on the vinyl edition is recorded in such a way that the needle returns to the previous position and the dripping sound plays continuously until the record is removed. In Belgium, 4 languages are commonly spoken: Dutch, French, German, and English. 38% of Belgians use 2 or 3 languages at work, and 27% can converse in more than 3 languages. Studies have been conducted that showed that most exercise machines in gyms, such as treadmills, display an incorrect number of calories burned with an overestimated margin of up to 80%. This happens because mass, metabolism, and personalized aerobic condition are not taken into account. They are only based on average measurements. In 1970, due to a dispute over wheat production between a farming family and the government of Australia, this family declared their territory independent, creating a kind of micronation called the Principality of Hutt River, which lasted until 2020 when it was reintegrated into Australia. During the Cold War, Russia produced maps of the Arctic region of Canada that were so detailed that many vessels still use them today instead of official charts, because they are more accurate. Most civilizations of the ancient world had legends or myths about universal floods, except Japan, whose mythology focuses on the creation of islands, viewing rain and tsunamis as everyday forces rather than punishments. Some Starbucks coffee shops in Saudi Arabia do not feature the famous siren in their logo. Instead, they use an altered version with ocean waves that are actually part of the siren's hair, along with the crown and star. The board game Chinese checkers has nothing Chinese about it. It was invented in Germany in 1892 and was named that way for marketing reasons. It is a simplified variant of the American game Halma. We have been deceived. Fortune cookies are another thing that seems Chinese but was not invented in China. There is no official record that mentions the story in which an apple fell on Isaac Newton's head, inspiring him to write the theory of universal gravitation in 1666. In reality, he simply observed apples falling from trees while he was in the gardens of his family home and wondered why they always fell toward the center of the earth. In the movie Spider-Man: Homecoming, there is a scene in which the villain Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, can be seen flying in front of the moon. This shot is almost identical to one from Batman from 1989, also starring Keaton, where the Batman symbol can be seen against the moon. According to a study, half of Americans use subtitles to watch television. One reason for this is that digital recordings allow many overlapping audio tracks, which makes it difficult to clearly understand dialogue. Giraffes can go longer without drinking water than camels, 21 days, while camels only last 15. Compared to humans, we can only survive 3 days without water. The first movie to feature digital water with simulated physics was Ants in 1998. Before this, digital fluid effects were modeled frame by frame. Detailed studies of fluid dynamics to achieve this were the work of scientists at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, United States. The magician David Copperfield performs his show at the MGM Hotel in Las Vegas 15 times a week, twice daily and 3 times on Saturdays, and he has been doing so for 20 uninterrupted years. Adult coloring books designed to relieve stress and anxiety have become fashionable in recent years, with such success that publishers were unable to keep up with demand. Deadpool forgets his weapons in a suitcase when he goes to fight the most important battle of his first movie. This happened because $7 million were cut from the filming budget, so the action scene in which they were going to be used had to be discarded. An airplane that loses all its engines in mid-flight can continue flying for up to half an hour while it finds a place to land. Engines only provide forward thrust. What keeps the aircraft in the air are the wings. Most of the coal we mine on the planet today originated during a stage millions of years ago in which trees fell but did not decompose, causing the ground to fill with wood, which led to massive fires. This stage ended when organisms such as fungi evolved that eat wood and reintegrate it into the environment. When you cook in a cast iron skillet, the amount of iron in the food being prepared can increase by 850%. When the actor Steve Carell left the series The Office, the producers offered the position of office boss to James Gandolfini, the star of the series The Sopranos, but HBO intervened by offering him $3 million just to refuse the role. In 2022, James Hong became the oldest actor to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 93 years old. He has appeared in more than 600 productions over 70 years. There's a bacterium in the human digestive system that helps regulate food allergies. People who take many antibiotics at an early age have reduced levels of this bacterium, which increases their likelihood of developing allergies. According to the BBC documentary Atom, the human body generates around 8,000 times more power than the sun, pound for pound. This can be demonstrated by comparing energy production by volume. The logo of the United States Cyber Command contains a nearly imperceptible 32-character code that is encoded with the 128-bit MD5 algorithm, and when decoded, it spells out the command's motto. The first countries to begin recognizing esports video game players as professional athletes in order to simplify their visa process were South Korea, China, and South Africa. Currently, countries such as Russia, Italy, Denmark, Nepal, the United States, Finland, and Germany have also done so. Every year, approximately 1,100,000 euros are collected from coins thrown into the Trevi Fountain in Rome. People usually make a wish each time they throw a coin. The money is used for its maintenance. The New York City Ballet has a shoe budget of $780,000. Dancers go through between 500 and 800 pairs while performing the Nutcracker over 6 weeks, and they use even more in 2 weeks of Swan Lake. The record for the longest time living in an airport belongs to Bayram Tepeli, a Turkish man who spent more than 9,800 days at Ataturk Airport in Istanbul. He fled his hometown to go work at the site, and when he could no longer continue his duties, he decided to stay and live there. When the airport was closed to commercial flights, he moved to another nearby one where, to this day, he has spent more than 1,800 days. The word vaccine comes from the word cow, the farm animal. This is because to make the first vaccine, cowpox was taken and injected into people, which generated antibodies to prevent the more dangerous human smallpox. In the movie Your Name, there is an orange GameCube console in the game room. This color was exclusive to Japan. In the Americas, the launch color was purple. During Michael Jackson's performance at the Brit Awards in 1996, the lead singer of the English band Pulp, Jarvis Cocker, walked onto the stage and made mocking gestures because he disagreed with the staging that presented Jackson as a messianic figure. The incident dominated all the tabloids in the United Kingdom. In 2004, a new species of monkey was discovered in Bolivia and was named the Golden Palace monkey. This happened because an auction was held to decide the name, and the online casino Golden Palace paid $650,000, which were used to support Madidi National Park, where this species lives. The first collaboration between Marvel and DC Comics was in a Wizard of Oz comic in 1975. When Stan Lee found out that the two companies were each working on the adaptation separately, he contacted DC so that it would be a joint effort. Cellophane is not actually made of plastic. It is completely made of cellulose, which means it can degrade in as little as 90 days if left in the soil. The total amount of fuel used by all the cars in all the races and practice and qualifying sessions of a Formula One season that lasts 1 year is less than the fuel used by a 747 airplane on a normal transatlantic flight from London to New York. And hundreds of flights like that are made every week. The last human structures to withstand the passage of time would be those carved into solid rock and those that are buried. For example, carved mountains, pyramids, tunnels, deep bunkers, and geological nuclear waste repositories. These things could last for millions of years. In contrast, the integrity of steel and concrete lasts only a few centuries. In South Korea, Pepero Day is celebrated every year on November 11th, when people give boxes of Pepero sweets, which are cookie sticks with a coating similar in flavor to Pocky. It is a tradition similar to Valentine's Day that began as a marketing campaign, and it takes place on the 11th day of the 11th month because the sweets have the same shape as the number 1. The Greek philosopher Socrates believed that reading was the dumbest way to learn things. For him, the best way was to talk face-to-face, hold debates, and practice things directly. No text written by him is known, and everything we know about his philosophy comes from biographers who lived during the same period. Chef Anthony Bourdain sometimes did not mention the names of the restaurants or places he visited while filming. He did this to prevent them from becoming tourist attractions and being ruined. The rivalry between the companies Puma and Adidas was so intense that the German town where their factories were located, Herzogenaurach, became known as the town of twisted necks, because locals would always start a conversation by first looking at the brand of shoes the other person was wearing. The first telephones did not have a ringer or a system to hang up. Callers had to shout to get the attention of the person on the other end until someone noticed and picked up the receiver. During the Napoleonic Wars at the beginning of the 19th century, the capital of Portugal was moved for 15 years to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. The highest-grossing non-animated comedy movie of all time is The Hangover Part 2, with $586 million. The South Korean company Samsung was founded in 1938 and initially produced various grocery items, even making its own noodles, before moving into electronics in 1970. According to studies, the difference between the predominantly individualistic culture of the West and the more collectivist culture seen in the East may have been caused by the farming techniques needed to produce wheat, which were easier and depended on fewer people, compared to the techniques needed to grow rice, which were more difficult and required the coordination of more people. Platypuses use electroreception to hunt their food. They can perceive the weak electrical impulses generated by the muscles of animals as they move. The board game Senet is one of the oldest known games. It was invented in Egypt and is more than 5,000 years old. The company Pantone created a special purple color in honor of the musician Prince called Love Symbol No. 2, based on the color of the piano he made with Yamaha in 2016. There is a garden near Google's headquarters where statues represent each different version of the Android operating system and correspond to the thematic name of each version. A surgeon in Great Britain developed a new method to help repair hearts that had been damaged after closely studying the anatomical drawings made by Leonardo da Vinci centuries earlier. A champagne cork can travel at more than approximately 25 miles per hour when a bottle is opened. The pressure inside the bottles can be up to 3 times greater than that of an average car tire. Actors Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson have a clause in their movie contracts stating that they cannot be defeated or placed in a position where it appears that they were beaten. This caused a scene in the movie Fast and Furious 8 to be changed, in which The Rock was supposed to be lying at Vin Diesel's feet, but it was altered so that he appeared sitting instead. In 2002, a study was conducted in which people underwent fake knee surgery to test the placebo effect, and it was found that they reported feeling less pain in the same way as people who actually had the real surgery. Bumblebees often do warm-up exercises when it is cold before flying, to avoid falling while they are in the air. The largest painting on display at the Louvre Museum in Paris, and one of the largest in the world, is The Wedding at Cana by the painter Paolo Veronese, finished in 1563 and measuring approximately 22 by 32.5 feet. It is located in the same room as the Mona Lisa, on the opposite wall, and since almost everyone who enters that room goes to see Leonardo da Vinci's painting, they usually ignore The Wedding at Cana despite its size. The Parliament building in Germany has a glass dome on its roof that people can climb. This dome symbolizes that citizens are above the government, and that the government must be transparent. The first person to use fingerprints on contracts was William Herschel II, who was the son of John Herschel, considered one of the inventors of photography, and also the grandson of William Herschel, the astronomer who discovered the planet Uranus. There are at least 100 episodes of the series Doctor Who, in which the tape they were stored on was reused, causing the originals to be lost forever. Only some VHS recordings made by people recording their television sets remain.
In the 1980s, the Swedish Navy detected sounds they suspected were hostile Soviet submarines, which was causing diplomatic tensions until they realized the sounds were actually coming from gas released by fish living in the area. This research won a Nobel Prize.
After the economic crisis of 1929, known as the Great Depression, many people in a city in Florida, United States, followed the advice of a banker who claimed that Coca-Cola stock would rise significantly in value. As a result, 67 residents became millionaires. The city had fewer than 7,000 people.
In 2012, a woman in France received her phone bill with an amount due of 11,721 billion euros, the equivalent of 6,000 times the gross domestic product of France. When she called the company to clarify her situation, she was told she had to pay it no matter what. It was only after insisting many times that they realized the mistake.
Despite having only 4% of the world's population, the United States generates, on average, 12% of all the garbage humans produce each year. This is equivalent to more than approximately 1,543 pounds of trash per year for each American.
During the time of the Roman Empire, many of the mummies prepared in Egypt were accompanied by realistic portraits of the individuals painted on wooden panels. There are currently around 900 of these portraits that have survived to this day.
Once, the rapper Lil Wayne was expelled from a charity basketball game against violence after he tried to fight with a referee over a foul call.
The richest man in the country of Georgia, Bidzina Ivanishvili, lives in a multi-million-dollar house made mainly of glass and metal called the Glass Castle. The entire city of Tbilisi can be seen from the upper floor.
There is a song by the band Bloodhound Gang called Ralph Wiggum, named after the character from The Simpsons, and the lyrics are made up only of phrases spoken by Ralph during episodes of the series.
Oil was first used as fuel in China more than 2,000 years ago. They had drilled wells and bamboo pipelines used for salt production by evaporating water. By the year 1000, it was already being used to heat homes and for lighting.
The painter Vincent van Gogh used to paint over his own paintings when he could not afford materials for a new one, and this was discovered recently when his works were analyzed using X-ray technology.
One of Spotify's founders, Daniel Ek, was the manager of uTorrent during 2006, a peer-to-peer file-sharing software used mainly to share digital content. This experience helped him develop knowledge that he later applied in creating the streaming service.
There are many giant concrete arrows across the United States that remain from the first route used for airmail. Pilots followed the arrows to know which direction to go.
The popular child actress of the first half of the 20th century, Shirley Temple, once went with her mother to a mall during Christmas when she was 6 years old, where Santa Claus approached her and asked for her autograph. According to an interview she gave to a newspaper in 1961, this made her begin to have doubts about the existence of Santa Claus. But hey, what if he really was the real one and simply wanted her autograph?
The Indian pipe plant is one of the few plants that does not contain chlorophyll, so it does not perform photosynthesis. It feeds on a parasitic fungus that takes its nutrients from other trees that do have chlorophyll. The Burger King restaurant in Australia is called Hungry Jack's because when they first tried to register the name, they discovered it had already been taken by a shop in the city of Adelaide.
Actress Kate Winslet broke the record for the longest time filmed underwater while shooting a scene for Avatar 2. Winslet held her breath for more than 7 minutes, surpassing the 6 minutes achieved by Tom Cruise while filming Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation.
According to a study, 13.6% of women showed symptoms of post-traumatic stress after giving birth to their first child. To observe Saturn's rings, a telescope with a magnification of 25 is required, But to see them as a structure separate from the planet itself, with visible separation, a magnification of 50 is needed.
The United States Patent Office has the authority to void any patent if they believe it threatens national security or poses a risk to economic stability. To this day, more than 5,000 patents have been prohibited.
The 1928 Mickey Mouse version Steamboat Willie is set to enter the public domain in 2024. This means that anyone will be able to adapt this character without having to pay Disney, as long as certain required conditions are met. Discarding the peel of an apple removes 50% of its total fiber content and 30% of its vitamin C.
The well-known restaurant Dunkin' Donuts, which recently removed the word donuts from its name to be simply Dunkin', reported in previous years that only 8% of its sales were donuts. Most of its revenue comes from coffee and beverages, similar to Starbucks.
Octopuses are so intelligent and have such complex nervous systems that science considers them capable of feeling pain and emotions, which is why in some countries it is illegal to operate on them without using anesthesia.
There is a tunnel in Switzerland where a roadway also serves as a potential nuclear bomb shelter. Its construction was completed in 1976, and at that time it was the largest shelter in the world. However, over the years, it stopped serving that primary function, and now, in addition to being a road, it can be visited as a museum. In 1925, a man named Victor Lustig managed to convince several businessmen that the Eiffel Tower was going to be dismantled as part of a government project. He took advantage of the misunderstanding to obtain money and then disappeared. The scam was eventually discovered, and he was arrested years later. Today, he is remembered as one of the most peculiar cases of historical fraud.
It is impossible to distinguish smells while we sleep. If you have ever dreamed of the aroma of your favorite food, it was completely generated by your brain and was not influenced by anything external. Microwave popcorn bags do not contain any special material. You can make your own microwave popcorn by putting corn kernels in a brown paper bag.
Tires have an expiration date, which is generally 6 years after their manufacture. This means they deteriorate even if they are never used. To know when they expire, they have a code on the inner wall. The last 4 digits indicate the week and the year in which they were manufactured. Workers at Disney World have an emergency evacuation procedure in which they hold hands to form a human barrier and walk toward the exit until all guests are safely outside.
The first newspaper was made in China in the year 740, but it was not until the 15th century, with the invention of printing presses, that newspapers began to circulate massively among the population. The Empire State Building in New York, inaugurated in 1931, had many empty offices during its early years. Almost 70% of the building was unoccupied. This was due to the economic damage caused by the Great Depression of 1929. It was not until 1950 that it began to be profitable. The Greeks and Romans did not wear pants because they were seen as a symbol of low education and lack of civility, since they were generally worn by barbarians.
The heavy metal band Iron Maiden sued the developers of a video game called Iron Maiden for $2 million because of the similarity in their names. They eventually reached an agreement, and the video game changed its name to Ion Fury.
The comedian Jerry Seinfeld was offered $100 million to film the 10th season of the series Seinfeld, but the offer was declined.
While watching the movie Stuart Little in 2009, Hungarian art historian Gergely Barkay recognized the painting Sleeping Lady with a Black Vase by Robert Barony, which had been missing for more than 90 years. It was in the background of a scene as set decoration. In 2014, the painting was sold at auction for $85,000.
50 years ago in Japan, tuna was caught only for fun and as pet food, and it was called nekomatagi, or fish that even a cat rejects.
One of the grotesques on the Washington National Cathedral, which are traditionally gargoyles used to drain water from the roofs, is shaped like Darth Vader. The Star Wars character was the result of a children's competition where kids drew designs they wanted for the sculptures, while the Northwest Tower was being constructed.
Wildcats are considered responsible for the global extinction of at least 33 animal species, most of them birds.
The first Oscar ever awarded in the Academy Awards for Best Actor was going to be won by Rin Tin Tin, a German shepherd who starred in many movies. However, considering the reputation of the awards could be affected if a dog received the prize in the first edition, they instead gave the Oscar to Emil Jannings.
The Netherlands has a defense system that allows much of the country to be turned into an island by flooding all possible land crossings in the event of an invasion.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.